Imagine you are dispatched to troubleshoot a dropped link. You log into the router, check the physical interfaces, and the optical transmit and receive power levels read perfectly green. In legacy 10G or 100G networks, this light level is usually the only metric that matters. Pristine light almost always guarantees a stable, error-free link. However, at 400 gigabits per second, that physical assumption no longer holds. Engineers are increasingly finding themselves in a scenario where optical levels are within spec, yet 400G links are continuously flapping and dropping packets. The router CLI reports PCS lock, yes, alongside those healthy light levels, but the count for carrier transitions continues to rise. This behavior is a direct byproduct of the mandatory forward error correction required by the IEEE 802.3bs standard. Within these architectures, the specific standard employed is RS544, commonly referred to as KP4FEC. KP4FEC is mathematically aggressive enough to correct significant signal degradation, which effectively masks physical layer issues from standard optical monitoring tools. To resolve these phantom flaps, the investigation must move past raw light levels and into the mathematical pipeline happening inside the router silicon. Troubleshooting 400GE effectively means shifting from purely optical metrics to a methodology that accounts for the mathematical processes sustaining the link. To trace how a signal is altered before hitting the fiber, we follow a data packet leaving the router's transmit MAC. The first stage is the transcoder, which ingests standard 64 by 66-bit data code words, compressing 4 separate code words into a single, denser 256 by 257-bit block. This high-density block reduces line encoding overhead before the signal undergoes more intensive mathematical processing. The compressed bit stream immediately enters a scrambler algorithm. The scrambler provides self-synchronization for the signal, preventing long, continuous runs of ones or zeros that cause the receiver to lose track of timing. Following the scrambler, alignment markers are inserted into the stream to identify specific data lanes for the receiving end. At this stage, the hardware has optimized and organized the raw data for transport. The payload is now ready for the forward error correction encoder. This encoding step is the mechanism that allows 400G links to remain operational even as the physical signal begins to fail. These preparatory steps maximize efficiency so that the computational requirements of KP4FEC don't reduce the overall network throughput. Inside the RS544 encoder, hardware performs error correction calculations. For every FEC code word, the encoder generates exactly 30 check symbols. This mathematical redundancy is required for data to survive transit, allowing the receiver to reconstruct up to 15 completely corrupted symbols per code word. This reconstruction happens locally in the silicon, allowing the link to recover data without requesting a retransmission from the sender. The completed code word is interleaved and split across the 16 physical lanes of the 400G AUI16 interface. Once the data leaves the router's internal math, it enters the physical DWDM link, where optical signal quality becomes the dominant factor. On the DWDM line, health is measured by the optical signal-to-noise ratio, or OSNR. A 400G FR4 optic operating within a DWDM system typically requires a target OSNR between 28 and 32 decibels. The minimum survivable OSNR for this architecture is approximately 26 decibels. Those 30 check symbols are the only protection for the data as it enters a noisy DWDM path that naturally degrades the physical signal. On the receiving end, the router pulls the noisy, degraded signal out of the DWDM network. As the OSNR drops toward that 26 decibel limit, the pre-FEC bit error rate spikes, indicating that the raw signal is arriving with significant corruption. The FEC decoder uses the 30 check symbols to deduce and replace the missing bits in real time. Inside the router CLI, the corrected FEC counter will begin to spin up rapidly as the silicon works to heal the incoming stream. Because the FEC is successfully reconstructing the data, the router maintains its PCS lock and continues to report healthy optical power levels. This stability continues until the DWDM OSNR drops below the 26 decibel threshold. At this point, the signal suffers more than 15 symbol errors per code word, exceeding the mathematical limit of the RS544 standard. The 30 check symbols are no longer sufficient to deduce the original payload. the FEC state becomes uncorrectable. This causes an immediate loss of PCS lock, resulting in a link flap. High corrected FEC levels seen alongside clean optics indicate a marginal optical signal rather than a configuration error. To resolve the issue, pull the OSNR and pre-FEC BER from the DWDM team to verify the physical health of the optical path. Mastering 400GE troubleshooting requires recognizing that the router's internal logic is designed to mask optical degradation until the exact moment the math fails.